It is day number 9 of our 30-day Q&A challenge where we're talking about all things horsemanship and all things, well, personal development, because ultimately that's what it takes to be a great leader for our horses. And so guys, nonetheless, today's question comes from Tonya. Tonya is a longtime follower, longtime supporter. She rode in one of the very first clinics I ever taught when I went off on my own. And so it's always great to connect with her, and I really appreciated her submitting this question to us today. And a lot of questions have revolved around you guys hearing my process of starting young horses. And so her question kind of stems from that, and it's if you start a horse in a rope halter his first few rides and then go to a bosal, do you have to go to a bit or can you stay in the bosal? And so this is a really great question because it's very simple, yet we have to have some context behind it. And the fact of the matter is that, you know, on the East Coast of the United States, a lot of times the bosal is seen as a more advanced piece of equipment because it seems like we have less control of the horse. Whereas if you go to the western part of the United States and you look at a bosal, it is what we would ride green horses in, inexperienced young horses in. And so when I take my horses from the rope halter to the bosal personally with my own personal horses or the select few client horses, then can they stay in the bosal the rest of their life, or do they have to go to a bit? The fact of the matter is that horse can be rode in the bosal the rest of their life. And so the bosal is fantastic because when you ride it traditionally, so the bosal is just the piece that goes around the horse's face. Okay, the raw hide or leather, latigo, kangaroo hide, whatever it's made out of, that part that just goes around the horse's face is considered the bosal. Then you have the little leather hanger, which is like your headstall, that obviously would keep the thing on the horse's face. And then you've got your reins or your macate. And when you put all of those pieces together, you have the hackamore, okay? So when you ride your horse in the hackamore, the nice part is you can start a very green horse and then you can ride with your hands wide and you can educate that horse from the very beginning. And because when you have your hands wide, you have nice lateral connection on the outside of the horse's face, just like they would experience in a halter. And then as the horse gets more educated, you can bring your hands closer together. And you actually, because of the way the bosal is positioned, you could actually have direct vertical, you could ask for a nice vertical engagement of the horse. And with a deep understanding of educating that horse, you could ride that horse one-handed in the bosal or in the hackamore for the rest of that horse's life. It's meant to be one-handed because if you look at the vaqueros who were riding in this, they were roping, they were doing garrocha, and the other hand was occupied with a rope or a garrocha pole. And so it was meant to be ridden in one-handed, but it's a great transition from taking a green colt and then advancing them to the point to where they can be rode one-handed. So Tonya, yes, absolutely. If a horse goes from a rope halter to a bosal, they could stay there the rest of their life. Now, the flip side of that is that what's that horse going to do? What's that horse's career look like? And do they need to transition to a bit? If you look at the show world right now, the reined cow horse is the association or the showing of events that horses are being brought up through the traditional vaquero tradition of how they're being trained, of going from, they've interjected the snaffle in the beginning, which is fine, but then they also go from the hackamore to the two-rein straight up into the bridle. And so they have classes for all of those horses to go all the way through. And in order for a horse to keep progressing in that sense, they would need to go into a two-rein, which does have them going into a port or a leverage type bit. But the thing is that that's an advancement of education into that area. A hackamore and a snaffle bit are very equivalent. They both work a little bit differently, but I love challenging myself in the hackamore because there's things that we can do in a snaffle bit that we couldn't get away with in the hackamore just because of leverage and not being in the horse's mouth, which is the most sensitive part. But there's also really great benefits. I like to start my horses in the hackamore, get them pretty confident in what the basic skills are, and then put them into the snaffle and teach them a lot of the same concepts in the snaffle, get them confident in the snaffle bit as well. And then as through that foundations phase, flip-flop back and forth between the two because they both have really, really, really great benefits to this. And the hackamore, if I was on a desert island and I only had one piece of tack that I could put on my horse's face, it's going to be the hackamore, okay? I absolutely love it. It challenges us horsemen and women to become the best that we can be in the communication that we do with our horse. It really will serve us when we transition to a snaffle bit because if you ride in a snaffle, very similarly ride in a hackamore, your horses can be much softer, much more responsive. They can be held more responsible for themselves because frankly the matter is in a hackamore, you cannot afford to let those horses really lean into you. So you really learn how to communicate to those horses how to maintain softness in your hand without pulling, versus in a bit, sometimes we let them pull a little bit more, frankly, because we know if we pull a little bit harder, they're going to back off sometimes. That's just the brunt face of the matter. For you guys that are interested in learning more about the hackamore, our video library is launching in 3 to 4 weeks. We're going to have all of our foundation groundwork, which will set you up for success in preparing your horse for the hackamore and being rode in that, as well as the foundation ridden. We'll have a hackamore horse series coming out very soon within the video library. So if you guys are interested in learning more about this process, then I would highly recommend that you guys just comment down below, say that you're interested in the Hackamore Horse Series, the video library, let us know, and that way when we launch it, I'll go back and I will reply to your comments and I will send you a direct link and you will be able to do that. It's going to cost less than half a lesson a month, and so we're going to make sure that you guys are taken care of. We're going to be doing live Q&As and all sorts of stuff that you guys can be a part of, and it's going to be really, really fantastic. We're going to be making sure that we deliver plenty of value, and we really appreciate all of y'all being along for this journey. Hope this answered your question, Tonya. Guys, if you want your questions answered, put them down in the comments below. We'll be doing this for the next couple of days. So thanks for joining us. We'll catch you guys tomorrow.